News Radio 700 WLW.
Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. That news came out a couple months ago, bombshell, right? Because I think a lot of folks are saying, okay, if he buys this thing, it seemed like one of his goals of many was to, create a platform where certain voices weren't being censored, right? If you spoke out against COVID or said that a vaccine didn't do anything, boom, you got censored. If you said this, you said that, you got shut down. So his goal was to get, hey, look, let's get everybody's voice into this thing and kind of have it out, and maybe we can learn a few things about either side of that. Seemed very reasonable. Was going to pay $44 billion for it. Okay, so as that process is happening, then he wanted to know information on how many bots there were, which is fake Twitter accounts. Turns out, people suspect like 20% of Twitter accounts are bots. They're fake. But he couldn't get the accurate information on that. Now it seems like he doesn't want to buy Twitter. And now folks are saying if he does try to back out, he'll get fined or do jail time. So I don't know where this thing stands. I don't think anybody really does. So we wanted to bring on an expert. And we have joining us right now Sandra Spurgeon. She's a legal expert with Spurgeon Law Group. Sandra, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good. All right. So with that intro there, Sandra, could you kind of break down where this thing is and just legally, what are all the things going on right now with Elon Musk and the purchase of Twitter?
Well, what we know is that Twitter, the CEO did a public statement this week indicating that they were getting ready to sue Elon Musk. And they'll sue in the state of Delaware that has a specific court dedicated for, it's a business court. So this is really an unprecedented suit. It's probably the largest in the country will ever have seen. And so the issue is that, they came to an agreement to pay $54.20 per share in April, but Elon Musk waived his right of due diligence. So when he's complaining about the bot, he, before the sale of the transaction, waived the right to do any due diligence and looking into the books, into any algorithms. So that is a particularly detrimental issue for Elon. So what he has done is saying, well, we relied upon the SEC filings where you said you had less than 5% of the users are bots, and you've not only misled the SEC, but you've misled me. So the question is he really trying to back out of this deal, or is he trying to get it for to drive down the shares? Since the bottom of the stock market has fallen out regarding these tech shares. So, that's pretty much where we are right now.
Is that an option then? Is that legal even? Like if he is trying to drive down the cost, can they then go back to the negotiating table and discuss, or is it's just already automatically too far down the road and this has to go to court now?
Well, it'll definitely go into court. But, what the public doesn't know is that assume I were to go to court and I were to get a $7 million verdict, that does not mean that the defendant who I have sued is automatically going to pay me $7 million. Often, Fortune 500 companies treat verdicts like negotiation tools. They say, well, we're going to appeal. They have the money to post a bond, and then everybody is forced then to start coming together to see if there can be a resolution. There'll be mediators, arbitrators, perhaps a mediator will be the likely choice involved. And they'll probably go several times to see if there's some common or happy medium that everybody can arrive with. But, Elon Musk must have, he's got a pretty heavy burden with his defense. He has to prove that, that there was that the representations that they made to the SEC were incredibly false, that were damaging to the company, and and have a material adverse effect upon any purchaser, prospective buyer of Twitter. So, he's saying, well, I asked for this information. They wouldn't disclose it, so I backed out of this deal. But in reality, often, you file suit when you can't get someone to cooperate. You file suit to be able to engage in discovery. And so, it's also a leveraging tool. Twitter's not going to want to make this information known, correct? They're not going to want people searching it's in 2022, it's interesting as to watching how damages are established. We're looking at social media statistics now in terms of determining damages, like in the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. Now here we are again.
And interesting. Sandra Spurgeon is our guest. She's a legal expert. So, in your opinion, Sandra, I can't decide. Did Elon Musk screw up, and maybe he didn't have all his I's dotted and his T's crossed? Or, look, he's a brilliant guy, one of those brilliant people on earth. Is he like 3 steps ahead of everybody, and this is a part of his plan? What do you think?
I wouldn't underestimate him. That's exactly what I would say about it. But here's the thing. It's like a prenup, right? There's $1 billion penalty clause in their contract. So, so the question is, if any side backed out, they're entitled to $1 billion. So the question is he going to pony up $1 billion or not?
Uh-huh.
And so
he could write a check for that. I mean, he's got that, right?
Right. So they're playing with they're playing in an entirely different league than most of us in the country could ever dream of being able to negotiate or have that type of wealth.
So then he could run the kind of the gamut here. If he could ultimately end up getting Twitter for cheaper, that's probably the kind of the best case scenario for him, maybe, right, through this legal process. Or on the back end of that, he pays $1 billion penalty in addition to legal fees, in addition to, could he face like jail time?
I don't, people say all kinds of things for sensationalism and to capture an interview. I don't see that. I don't see criminal activity.
Okay.
I think he's saying, listen, this is, what, you're not going to supply this information. It's okay. Let me embarrass you, Twitter. Let me go about and prove to you that Russia influenced the election, that Twitter is an unreliable social media platform. And let's just, and people will run like rats from using Twitter. So, he's got some leverage there of saying, you want to talk bad PR? Let's talk bad PR. How horrible could it be?
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's the thing. I forget how many Twitter followers he has, but he is a person from coast to coast and internationally around the world is known. So he has a pretty big pulpit, right? He's got a pretty big voice, and people kind of, because he is so brilliant when hearing him talk about anything. I usually understand about a third of it, Sandra, to be honest. But nevertheless, he's a smart guy, and he could do a lot of damage. So last question for you, Sandra. How do you see this thing playing out?
I see that the court is going to quickly get a hold of this. There's going to, obviously there's going to be very high-profile lawyers on each side. They're going to engage in some very contentious discovery. Everyone's going to pound their chest. They're going to ferret it out. And then I think the judge is going to enter an order requiring everyone to go to mediation and behind closed doors before any of this information is ever released to the public. And so under the threat of, if it goes to trial, would probably be the first time that we would ever see any of the statistics from these algorithms to know what percentage of the users are actually bots. And so, so you're going to have the threat of the looming trial and that being exposed. You're going to have the Elon Musk side. He's equipped, he beats to his own drum. He's very different, but that's what makes him unique and wildly successful, is that he is very unpredictable and he has a very skilled legal team. And so, and they're going to go behind closed doors, and they will ultimately determine if they can come to a price that everyone can live with. Nobody will walk away happy, but maybe Elon Musk will be smiling when he comes out of the room.
Yeah, he does not seem like a guy that would be deterred for, hey, look, I spent a bunch of money, right, but I was able to kind of prove a point. And, he has his philosophies on life and things like that he feels important. He's a man of principle. And I think a lot of people admire that about him, and especially a guy that's willing to just, flush a bunch of cash down the drain in order to kind of prove a point. I think it's very interesting. Well, Sandra, listen, we really, really appreciate your expertise on this, and hopefully we'll talk again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.